This is The Wire for 2300 Zulu, July 9th, 2026. Precedence is routine. Information cutoff is 2200. Bottom line up front. War continues in Middle East as ceasefire remains defunct for now. Merchant traffic in Hormuz slows to a crawl due to targeting. Beginning with international events, in the Middle East, the war continued to escalate overnight with many targeting efforts being undertaken by the United States and Iran. Within Iran, the United States continued to strike coastal sites and fast boat ports in addition to striking more substantial infrastructure targets deep within Iran. These strikes continued throughout the day with explosions being reported throughout the country this afternoon. On the Iranian side, many strikes were carried out on the usual sites throughout the region. In Kuwait, Ali al-Salam Air Base and Camp Arifjan were targeted, with the Iranians claiming to hit a Patriot battery at one of these sites. In Qatar, a radar installation was targeted and a fuel depot was targeted in Bahrain. In Jordan, Mufawak al-Salti Air Base was targeted again, with the American embassy in Amman urging all Americans to shelter in place during the strikes. Drone and missile strikes were also reported targeting U.S. positions in Erbil, Iraq, the success of which is currently unknown. On the home front, in New York, the Department of Buildings has reported that the former Pfizer building has largely been stabilized after severe buckling and a partial collapse of the upper floors was observed a few days ago. Various reinforcement operations continue to be undertaken to further stabilize the structure, and a third-party construction firm has been brought in to conduct additional repairs. Analyst comments for this wire. Despite many airframes being transferred back to the United States from the Middle East, American targeting within Iran has continued throughout the day. The heavy reliance on Tomahawk munitions, as observed on the ground by Iranians, also adds weight to the theory of the U.S. having to rely on standoff munitions due to the logistical movements resulting in fewer aircraft being available for bombing runs. Also, last night's strikes were also possibly more significant than meets the eye. Locals on the ground reported the Aktaka Khan railway bridge being struck overnight, which was interesting due to its location being in the far northeastern corner of Iran. This bridge is part of the newly unveiled China-Iran Railway Network, which is a series of rail lines linking Iran to western China. These lines also meander through the mountains to eventually connect to Russia via Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan. Taking out this bridge was not only interesting because it is one of the farthest north targets struck during the entire war, but it's also a very public message to China, who has been long suspected of shipping the Iranians materiel and supplies to carry on the fight. In the Strait of Hormuz, civilian merchant traffic continued to transit the waterway, but since last night the traffic has slowed to a halt again with very few crossings throughout the day. As a reminder, it takes up to 2 months for a tanker to make its way to the U.S. from the Middle East. Consequently, if the Iranians shut down the strait again due to this targeting, or if companies simply decide that the risk isn't worth it, the world would only have the benefit of a handful of tankers which have been able to make the crossing over the past couple of weeks. This does not even remotely come close to alleviating the problems that prompted the MOU being signed. President Trump himself said that, at the time, the U.S. only had about 4 weeks worth of strategic reserve left before shortages began. As the fighting has resumed to some degree, the status of the global energy crisis remains a very real concern, and the clock starts ticking down as the flow of petroleum slows down once again. This concludes The Wire for 2300 Zulu, July 9th, 2026.